My husband introduced me as the nanny. We had been married for 11 years. Everyone at the party laughed. One woman didn't. The strange thing is that I laughed too. Not because I thought it was funny, but because when 20 people are looking at you, waiting to see how you'll react, sometimes laughing feels easier than asking the question that might change your life. It happened at exactly 7:18 p.m. during my husband Daniel's company's summer party in Bellevue, Washington. We'd been married for 11 years, and I had spent the last 3 balancing a paper plate, a Capri Sun, and our 6-year-old son, Ethan, while Daniel worked the room, shaking hands and introducing himself to people I had never met. A woman in a navy blazer walked over with a smile and asked, "And who is this?" Daniel didn't even hesitate. "This is Ethan's nanny," he said with a grin. "Honestly, she spends more time with him than I do." Everyone laughed. Someone even joked, "Best employee you've ever hired." I forced a smile because I was sure the next words out of Daniel's mouth would be, "I'm kidding. This is my wife." They never came. The conversation moved on as if nothing unusual had happened. They started talking about a promotion, a new office in Seattle, and a business trip to Chicago. I was still standing there holding Ethan's backpack, while my own husband continued introducing me to 3 more people exactly the same way. The nanny, not my wife, not Megan, just the nanny. Only one person didn't laugh. She was an older woman standing near the dessert table, wearing a silver name badge that read, "Margaret, board member." She looked at Daniel, then at me, and the expression on her face changed completely, because while everyone else thought they had heard a joke, Margaret looked at me as though she had just recognized something I hadn't yet seen. And before the night was over, she would say 7 words that made every year of my marriage suddenly look very different. I still remember the exact moment Margaret didn't laugh. It wasn't dramatic. She didn't gasp or interrupt or make a scene the way people do in movies. She just stopped smiling, like something inside her had shifted out of place. Daniel was already halfway into another conversation about quarterly targets, completely relaxed, completely unaware that the sentence he had just spoken had landed differently on someone in the room. But Margaret kept looking at me, not at him, at me. And for the first time that evening, I became aware of how I must have looked from the outside. A woman in a soft green dress holding a child's backpack, standing slightly behind her husband, smiling at the right moments, quiet when she was supposed to be quiet, useful, present, but not named. Margaret took a slow sip of her drink, and then she asked something that didn't match the light tone of the party at all. 11 years? I nodded. It felt like the safest answer. She glanced briefly at Daniel again, then back at me. "And he introduces you as the nanny?" I tried to smile it off. "It was just a joke," I said quickly, the way you do when you want a moment to disappear before it becomes real. But Margaret didn't respond immediately. Instead, she looked past me toward Daniel, who was now laughing with 2 coworkers near the grill, completely at ease, completely unchanged. Then she said something so calm that I almost didn't catch it over the music and the voices and the clinking glasses. "That man doesn't joke by accident." I remember feeling a small chill move through me at that sentence, because it didn't accuse him, it didn't attack him, it simply suggested something I had never allowed myself to consider before, that there might be intention behind what had just happened. I opened my mouth to respond, but she raised her hand slightly, not to stop me, but to steady the moment, like she didn't want me to fall into denial too quickly. Then she leaned in just a little and asked the question that would stay with me long after the party ended. "Has he ever introduced you correctly when it mattered?" The number on Margaret's card belonged to a leadership coach. She had spent 23 years training executives to communicate under pressure. When I told her what had happened at the party, she didn't ask whether Daniel loved me. She asked a different question. "When people leave a conversation with the 2 of you, what do they know about you that doesn't involve your husband?" I sat there in silence, because I couldn't answer. She wasn't asking who I had been 11 years ago. She was asking who I was now. And I realized that every introduction, every joke, every compliment had quietly erased another piece of me until even strangers knew me only as someone who made Daniel's life easier. That evening, I didn't confront him. I opened my resume instead. The marketing director position I had ignored 6 months earlier was still accepting applications. At 9:42 p.m., I clicked apply. 2 weeks later, I got the interview. 3 weeks after that, I got the job. The salary was $31,000 higher than my old one. When I told Daniel I had accepted it, he stared at me for a long time before saying, "I wish you had talked to me first." For the first time in 11 years, I didn't apologize. I simply smiled. I wasn't asking. 6 months later, I attended another company event. This time it was mine. One of my coworkers walked over to Daniel. "So how do you know Megan?" Daniel looked at me. "Waiting." I answered before he could. "I'm her husband." He nodded. "Yes." Nothing more. For the first time in 11 years, I wasn't standing behind someone else's name. I was standing in my own. I wanted to answer her immediately. Of course he had. Hadn't he? But instead of answering, I started searching my memory. Daniel introducing me at his company Christmas party. "This is Megan." No. It was, "She keeps our family running." His college reunion. "She's the reason our son survives the school week." His cousin's wedding. The one who remembers everything because I never do. Every introduction sounded like a compliment. People always laughed. People always smiled. And somehow the conversation always became about what I did for Daniel instead of who I was. I had never noticed that before. Margaret watched my face change. "You don't have to answer me," she said softly. "You already did." Then someone called her name, and before walking away, she reached into her purse, pulled out a business card, and slipped it into my hand. "If you ever wonder whether you're imagining things," she said, "call me." That was all. No explanation. No dramatic warning. Just a business card. The party ended an hour later. Daniel drove home, humming along to the radio while Ethan slept in the back seat. "You were quiet tonight," Daniel said. I was just tired. He nodded without looking away from the road. I figured. That answer bothered me. Not because it was rude, food. Because it was convenient. Tired. That was always the explanation. If I was hurt, I was tired. If I was disappointed, I was stressed. If something felt wrong, I was overthinking. By the time we pulled into the driveway at 10:06 p.m., I couldn't stop hearing Margaret's question. Has he ever introduced you correctly when it mattered? After Daniel went upstairs, I opened my phone. I searched through 11 years of photos, videos, and old Facebook posts, birthday parties, weddings, vacations, work events. One by one, I found videos where Daniel introduced me. Not once did he say what I actually was. His wife. Every single time I was the organizer, the planner, the mom, the helper, the one who kept everything together. Somewhere along the way, I had stopped being a person in my own marriage. I had become a role. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it because the next morning, I made one phone call that Daniel never expected me to make.